I met Emet because we were chevruta at our first, if not now, training. They ask you to pick a partner. They say that whoever you end up with is who you're meant to be with. Emet and I picked each other and quickly became friends. We both loved the same silly dating drama we were going through. Over several years, we grew closer, especially after he moved to West Philly. We both had dogs, spent a lot of time with him and with Rocky in Clark Park, and spent a lot of time visiting him in hospitals too, sharing with me his perspectives on being a person with illness. And that was really helpful for me as a nursing student at the time. He was often awake very late at night. I was working night shift, so I was literally always awake in the middle of the night. We spent a lot of time messaging back and forth. Did a lot of behind the scenes logistics type work. I started a spreadsheet of who was going to be there for him at night early on in his stay after he moved to the hospice place, because he was really concerned about spending the night alone, and also because he just shouldn't have ever had to spend the night alone. And I spent a lot of time calling people to coordinate walking the dog, Rocky, doing the logistics to make sure we had whatever people needed to be able to support him. And I did a lot of the underlying logistics behind the living funeral. And of course, I was there as much as I could. And then I also did a good amount of coordinating with hospice and helping to translate the hospice policy, medical stuff, until it made sense for people, advocating for him and what his needs were, the nursing staff, and making sure that his wishes were being honored, and that our community had space that was being honored. Getting to hear his perspective and him getting to give me advice and getting to just hear stories from his life. Put out a couple calls of he needs these things, and people just did them. He was an incredible community builder, and he did a lot for a lot of people. And that meant that people were willing and able to step up and be able to provide that care when he needed it. And mostly we just said, hey, here are the needs. And dozens, at least, of people were willing and receptive to provide so many different things. People had different abilities of what they could provide, and that was really embraced and accepted and supported. And that's something that was really important to him, of meeting people where they're at, to really seek out and create space for other people to support you, was something he was really good at. A lot of people got to feel really close with him, and I feel really lucky that I was one of those people. I have other very close friends in the community of caring for him. It formed a really tight community. It was a lot of people that I would never have met otherwise, because he was so active in Jewish communities and Palestinian justice communities and disability justice communities and queer communities. He really bridged a lot of different identities, often created and hosted spaces for a lot of different people who never would have met each other to come together.
Can you tell me a little bit about skill sets of the people who made up Emet's care network?
Yeah, it was, again, as an organizer, I'm used to bugging and getting people to come to things. And it was really overwhelmingly beautiful to see how much people just responded to simple asks. The rabbinical student chaplaincy, both to support Emet, but also to support the people supporting Emet, was a big part of the sustainability of it all, is so many people providing emotional support for each other. And a lot of us were organizers, logistical skills, forming spreadsheets, making sure every time slot was covered, putting out asks, looking for resources. The disability justice community, those of his friends who were disabled or chronically ill, I just have a tremendous amount of knowledge just in general about navigating health systems as a healthcare provider. I just know minutia compared to what disabled people with chronic illness know from their lived experiences. Really, just the knowledge share that happened there was tremendously helpful. It was more helpful for knowing where the good crushed ice is.
That was really important, because he loved crushed ice.
He does really love crushed ice. Who has cars, and being able to drive the right kind of chocolate frosting or M&Ms when it's necessary, or even financial resources, who had those to be able to provide that. I think people were really incredible artists and brought art to his room, song leading, and that ended up being really important to him in the end. I mean, we were sharing songs through the whole process. That was really healing in a way that was helpful for everybody involved. Somebody from Talking Heads did his hair just on a community ask. There were so many different ways that everybody's different and unique knowledge and skill set came together to support him and to support others in a sustained supporting of him, because really we were able to provide near continuous support of him for months and months. A lot of that sustainability came from the care that was provided as a network. He was the kind of person who made space for that. Whatever you had to share to bring was always enough and always appreciated. And that was even before he was in hospice. That was just who he was as a person, to find the individual unique talents of every person and then just make room for the joy. And my parents both did a lot of HIV/AIDS activism in the late 80s, early 90s. That's actually one of the things that they met doing. And I definitely, while I was sitting in his hospice room, just thought about all the stories I'd heard from them and thought about their friends that they'd lost when they were similar age to me, and just the experience of what it really means to have a community to embrace and to care for each other, and just how special it is even in the midst of a really, really hard and challenging time.
The second hospice center, where he passed away, was originally started to care for HIV/AIDS patients.
Some of the people who sat with him afterwards were also volunteers from a network that came from that time.
Shira.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Shira too. I think I read Harry Potter.
Had our Harry Potter party.
Yeah. The idea behind that party was, well, the idea behind the bucket list, the Facebook group that I created, was that initially, even before he was in hospice, even before he'd made the decision that he was going to stop treatment, the idea was that he wasn't doing well. And one of the things he wanted was Harry Potter World. And it became pretty clear that we weren't going to be able to make that happen. And so we decided to bring Harry Potter World to him. And that felt really, really special. I was very late to work that day because I just couldn't pull myself away from the magic, and he was so much magic. I was coordinating background logistics, but I was not the only one doing that by any means. I think there were so many people making sure that somebody was there all the time, or if there was a need, making sure that that was met. People felt really empowered by Emet just as a person, but also by the network to jump up and fill a need with whatever they had, and to set limits and boundaries. So maybe perhaps somebody was like, oh, I can't stay all night, but I could stay until 2, 3. And I'd be like, well, I could probably pick it up at 2 or 3 in the morning. And having those kind of fears of here's what I can give and here's where that limit is. And having that be really held and accepted and embraced as part of the sustainability of it all allowed for that decentralization and that self-organizing for people to jump in and feel able to meet a need.
Because a lot of people came from If Not Now. Do you think the way the space was organized was rooted in that?
I think there's a strong component that was rooted in If Not Now being a decentralized movement. One of the main tenets of If Not Now that I really carry with me in my kind of life and practices is this idea of if 3 people think it's a good idea, it is, and you should do it. And I really saw that in the network. We don't need to check with everybody. We just need a couple of people to think it's a good idea. That's really what the Harry Potter party evolved out of, and the living funeral, and a lot of even stuff with the Shiva afterwards, where just 2 or 3 of us want to do this thing. Or many of the Havdalot that we hosted with him that he loved. Of course, everything was asked him if he was comfortable with it. But beyond that, there was never permission granting or giving. It was just things arose as they were needed and as they were helpful by a couple of people who decided that that was what needed to happen. And that's what the giving him smicha, making him a rabbi, came from. That was just a couple of people's ideas. And a lot of the decentralization came from the disability justice movement and his friends through disability communities. And in disability circles, there's an understanding in a deep and anti-capitalist way that who you are is enough and what you have and what you can bring is enough. That was really crucial to the formation of the network and to the care that was provided. Is something I've thought about a lot, was not able to practice in the same way until I saw it really work with Emet.
Could you tell me a little bit about how the living funeral was planned?
Was already a little bit in motion when it came to me. And so then it really just came down to coordinating people and invitations and a space. I talked with hospice about where is it going to be and decorations. Mickey played a big role in that. They had just had top surgery. We're doing a lot of texting coordination at the time. We did a banner. We painted this banner because we wanted to be able to bring him with us always to protests and actions. We wanted people to be able to decorate it, and we wanted to make his space beautiful. And there was a lot of coordination with rabbinical students. They gave, I think, either like money or time or resources or something for the food afterwards. And mostly I did a lot of grocery shopping and picking things up. Probably 50 plus people came, and it was really wonderful for everybody to get to celebrate him and for him to see how much he meant to so many people. And somebody coordinated the Zoom so that people who couldn't be there in person could participate. I was there the day of, maybe 8 or 9 hours before, and I was there helping him get ready. It was actually really funny because you're in a room where people, 90% of them were in theater in high school. And so everybody knows how to do makeup, and he was doing his makeup, but he needed help. And I was the one person who knows nothing about makeup at all. So I was mostly sitting with him or scurrying around finding other people to come help do his makeup. And I was walking with him. Everything was set up, and there was art and decorations and the banner, and everybody was waiting for him, and he was finishing getting ready, and I was with him, and he said to me, I feel like this is my wedding. Like, I'm gonna while. And it was just so special to get to walk in with him, see just the joy on his face of somebody who brought so much joy to so many people, getting to have that moment and see just really truly how wonderful he was and how much he meant to all of us.
I think he got the idea from Audre Lorde.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. He loved Audre Lorde.
When you walk into Emet's hospice room, can you tell me about what it looked like?
Yeah, it looked like community. You almost never walked into the hospice room and nobody was there. There was always usually 3 or 4 people sitting with him, carrying, painting toenails, waxing legs, makeup, activity, watching something on the phone. I was single at the time. He and I spent a lot of time on Tinder, him advising me basically of who I should swipe on, giving me dating advice. It was joyous and fun most of the time. It was also hard. He was in pain a lot of that time. And so sometimes it looked like people just sitting around singing because we needed some outlet of the breath and the emotion and the gravity of the moment. Mostly it just looked like lots of people and lots of colors. He loved brightness and colors. There was pride flags snuck in a couple different places. And the banner, which had glitter and lots of art on it. There was art all around the room. People would make art when they were with him, and people would bring art to him, and he really loved that. His talit was hanging in the room. I have his talit now. It was like glittery and shiny. It looked like him, just brightness and joy, but still able to hold all the depth that a person can experience. And it looked full. There were supplies and snacks and resources for people.
Emet offered us hospitality.
He was hosting literally from his hospice bed. Yeah, that was never lost on me. Ever the planner, ever the host. He was planning a wedding right before he passed. He ordered all this stuff. And it was only after he died that I realized that he knew that he was dying and that he was probably bringing all these people together. There's a relationship in Judaism between weddings and funerals. It's customary to wear white also for burial. I think he was really aware of that. Just holy, just very holy. So much his gifts to the world continue. When he became a rabbi at his living funeral, it just was so, yes, this is who he has always been. The most mundane things, he made space for them, and the more serious things. He was able to hold all of the complexity of life and experiences and see the value and holiness in all of it. I want to color, and he would just make you feel like you created art.
Well,
Yeah, to find the holiness in everything. My childhood rabbi would play this game with us where she would ask us to name anything and she would relate it to holiness. That is just so much who Emet was. No matter what you did or said, he would find a way to see the good in that and to bring it forth. He was a chaplain up until he wasn't talking anymore. The weekend before he died, my mom was in town visiting for Purim, and she came with me to sit with Emet for a while. And I left the room for a short period of time to coordinate Roxy's walking schedule with one of the nurses. I came back in the room, and my mom was sitting there just sharing her life story with Emet, drew out memories and emotions from her, like she felt healed by, and she had just met him. He was just my friend. He was caring for her. He was still drawing out the real moments in my mom's life and providing chaplaincy for her, which was just a blessing for her, and also just so beautiful to see. His first instinct was bring her whole real self into that community, and that was just who he was always.
Do you remember that sign on the second Hospice Center on his door that he made that said "New friends always welcome"?
Yeah, that's him as a person, right? New friends always welcome. I mean, he made new friends always, and he always wanted those friendships to be real and deep and meaningful. And he always created space for that. And he encouraged us to create space for each other, to have this hard and authentic and real conversations about our own lives, even when he was dying. And that's not an easy thing to do. And he was providing that kind of care right up until the end. Those gifts keep going and going. And especially like for me as a healthcare provider, the lessons he taught me in my career, which I was a brand new nurse at the time, I hope I give to other people. The patience of making room for people to share. I hold the space for as long as that would held the space. And I've learned so much about the people I work with and care for from doing that. And
what was the challenges to organizing the network?
To love and trust so many different people with somebody so special. Over the many months, I learned to trust that other people loved him just as much as I did and were providing him things that I couldn't too. And because we were all in community with each other, there was lots of exits. I believe there were breakups and get back togethers and everything just in the time that he was even in hospice. Truly loved the whole community, even when it was hard.
What lessons can the care network teach us about disability and chronic illness?
All we had to do was listen to the needs and then think a little bit creatively about how to meet those needs. COVID has really illuminated the ways in which we're really interdependent on each other as a society. Creating a culture and a society and a space in which it's okay to ask for what you need, making a space where it can be reciprocal, where it doesn't feel one person is getting all the care and one person is doing all the giving, and also finding a balance to not make that contingent. It's not if you do this, then I'll do this. It's we're all gonna give the gifts that we have and the time that we can and the love that we have to the limits that are safe and comfortable for our bodies. And we're going to trust that that's probably enough. Those sustainability and those acts of care are actually part of a healthy and a healing society. We need that. We need to be able to ask for what we need and accept if other people can't give that in a non-judgmental way, and trust that somebody else will be able to. That is going to be really beneficial long-term if communities are serious about supporting people with long COVID or other chronic conditions or disabilities. Then we need to start with deconstructing our capitalist notion of what is enough, what is too much, and just creating space where asking for what you need is just participating in the community, and giving what you have is the same thing, just what it means to be in the community. I'm working as a midwife. This is something I spend a lot of time talking with patients about, like postpartum care, is people want to help, and it's hard and scary, but important to put that trust in the people you love to say the things that you need, not the things that you think they want to hear. Like, yeah, everyone wants to hold the baby, but really ask them to do your dishes, and people are going to be overjoyed to have you ask something that they can do. And I hear from people all the time when I see them at their 6-week visit. It was so cool to watch people want to do my dishes, how close I felt to them for that. And that is something I totally learned from Emet, that ask for the thing you actually need and want, and trust that people are going to do that. And I don't know how he had that wisdom. He was so young. It's scary to show your vulnerability, but he really loved people, and he really trusted that they would make space for that. People did. People want that. It feels good to be asked of something you can give. And it feels good if you say, I can't, for people to hold that too. And he was really good about that. He created a space where you gave what you could and you didn't when you couldn't. And that was okay.
People need to be needed.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what a community is people with the radical understanding that we deeply need each other. And he created that space where that was really celebrated. And watching people suffer alone in the height of the pandemic was so hard, because I had just seen how beautiful it could be when we could all share community, all the people who wouldn't get to die the death that Emet did. There were probably other people like Emet out there that were being abandoned. We saw a lot of pretty serious and difficult pregnancy outcomes related to COVID. And I'm not in a field where I lose a lot of patients, and I was losing patients. I used to have conversations with him in my head every day on the way to work about what does it mean to be there for somebody when that's all you have to offer. And I spent a lot of time just sitting in my patients' rooms just to be there because their family wasn't allowed. Having been through just the enormity of the loss of Emet, and then having the whole world feel that grief and that enormity of loss, I think COVID really exposed a lot of things that I already knew to be true, and that Emet knew to be true. And it was really hard to watch the whole rest of the world start to realize it. I often would hear him telling me to welcome people into this disability justice movement.
I first met you when we were chevruta at our If Not Now training. And that was a time in my life where I was pretty intentionally deciding to give Judaism a second chance after a long time believing that there wasn't space for queer people and Lefty people in the Jewish community. And I think Rebecca said something about whoever you end up with your chevruta is meant to be. You can't pick the wrong person, but I picked the the most best possible person because you taught me that there's space for people like me and there's space for people like all of us in Judaism, and you taught me to hold that space and bring others.
I realize
I'm not the kind of person
who
wants to go with the flow and fit in.
wants to go with the flow and fit in.
I'm an agitator. I'm opinionated. I'm a libertine.
I'm a libertine
And a leader.
and a leader.